I just finished sewing the Kielo wrap dress by Named Patterns. It's a very popular pattern and I thought I would just share how I got on with it. So I chose the sleeveless pattern just because I wanted something quick, something I could wear in the summer. So this only has 5 pieces. You have one front piece, and then you also have 2 pieces on the back, and it's in 2 pieces so that you can sew a vent at the bottom. And then you have a pattern piece for the belt, and there's 2 pieces that you need to cut for that as well, and a pattern piece for the neckband. Choosing the size is pretty easy. This is sewn with a stretch fabric and knit fabric, and I did most of it on my serger if I'm completely honest, although I did crack out my non-straight stitch machine to sew some of it as well. I cut out a size 44, which is an EU size, and that was based just on the bust measurement because it's very forgiving, it's stretchy, it ties at the waist, so you've got all of this extra fabric here anyway, so you don't need to worry about grading for the waist or for the hips. I guess if you had quite different proportions then maybe you would, but I am pretty much a rectangle. I measure the same at the bust and in the hips, and then my waist is quite round, so I only go in a couple of inches at the waist, and I found that size 44 was perfect for me, and that's with a 38.5 inch bust. I like to print my patterns A0 and then cut out the actual paper that I need and then cut out the fabric, and that process took me around an hour and a half, so it was pretty quick with just these 5 pieces. But it does also come in a jumpsuit and a long sleeve version as well, so technically there's 4 different things you could make with this pattern. You could make the wrap dress sleeveless like this one, wrap dress with sleeves. You could make a sleeveless jumpsuit with the wrap, and then you can also make a jumpsuit with sleeves as well. My fabric was pretty cheap. I think I spent about $3 a metre on it from Fabricland. I just needed something cheap because I wasn't sure how well it would turn out, and this is quite a fabric hungry pattern. This is the first maxi length dress that I've ever made, and so I wanted to make sure I had at least 3 meters of fabric. I think I actually used more like 2.5, 2 3/4, but it's still a lot of fabric that you need to have lay out at the beginning. The construction is pretty simple. My neckband went in really well. I was very pleased with that. And then the hardest parts I found were the vent at the back, just because I always struggle with vents and making sure that that comes across neatly at the point. So I did have to sew that a couple of times, but it wasn't too bad. And then I also found that the armholes were a little bit long for my liking. You could see my bra showing when you wore it over top, and I have to wear one. So I changed how the armholes went as well. There is a blog post on Closet Core Patterns about this dress and Heather's experience making it, and she also found that the armholes were quite large. So her point though there, which is an important one, is if you do choose to take those in a bit, you are going to be stretching the fabric at the bust a bit more, and so it could get a bit tight here if you do make those armholes smaller, so you definitely want to bear that in mind if that's an adjustment that you make. I also decided to cut out the pattern at the length it was from the beginning, and then I changed my mind halfway through. I had the front and the back already stitched together at the shoulders at the time, and then I decided I wanted to shorten it by a whole 6 inches because Named Patterns are designed, I believe, for 5'8" people, and I'm closer to 5'2", 5'3". I've taken in 6 inches at the adjustment line, which means I'm having to match up at the higher up notches. It's going to be a bit different here just because of the tapered shape. So what you would normally do is add a piece of paper in here, right down here to kind of finish that shape off, but I'm lazy and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut the excess off here, reshape the bottom and kind of taper it, and then mark these notches in. And then I had to change where the vent was as well because I've already interfaced all the way down to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is keep going until the mark over here now. So I've just had to get my stitch ripper out and unrip those stitches. So I do that with both the back pieces and the front piece. For shaping, I'm going to run my ruler from where the fold is down to where this notch is because it kind of gets straight there, and I'm just going to cut it with my rotary cutter, and then I'm going to just square it off. The only thing, and I know we shouldn't point out our flaws when we make things, but if I was to make it again, and this is to bear this in mind, is the way that the ties attach. And it's probably me not reading the instructions properly rather than anything else, but the ties should come from the point, in my opinion. I had a notch down here and that's what I aligned these two, but then it ends up with these little kind of tabby bits which you kind of have to fold in when you tie it. I've seen on other people's that their ties come from higher up, so I think that was a me problem rather than anything else. So just something to bear in mind if you make this pattern. It should kind of come out, when we fly and squirrel it, it should kind of come out from this seam. It should kind of continually go from the armhole seam. Okay, I'm going to put it on and show you what it looks like. You can tie this at the front or the back, but because I have a bit of a rounded belly, I don't like it when I pull the straps to the back. This fabric kind of emphasizes that, so we will be tying it at the front. So the ties bring the sides in, and that's what gives you this kind of interesting detail at the bottom here, this kind of tulip shape. I'm just trying to make sure that the ties are flat on my back. I also added top stitching to the ties, and that was just so that they don't go out of shape. They'll always maintain that shape. So that was just like an extra step that I recommend doing on this pattern. It's not in the instructions, but I think it definitely helps those keep their shape, depending on the fabric you're using. If you're using a knit like this that's kind of quite flexible and spongy and doesn't hold shape, it's kind of important, I would say. So this is my finished dress. This is what the armhole looks like now. And the vent helps you walk. Absolutely no way that you could make this without the vent, unfortunately, because I'm not a fan of making those, but it was worth it. I think it turned out pretty well. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below and I'll try and answer them when I can. And please subscribe to the channel as well if you would like to see more sewing and quilting content like this.